The infant's cry had stopped 3 hours ago. Elias Ward sat in the darkness of his cabin, a Colt peacemaker resting on his thigh, watching his daughter's chest barely rise and fall. Grace was 11 weeks old. She'd been refusing milk for 6 days now. Goat's milk, cow's milk, watered-down oatmeal. Nothing worked. His wife Mary had been dead 3 weeks, buried on the hillside where the wind never stopped. He'd nailed a sign to his gate 6 days ago. Infant in need, nursing. Mother wanted. We'll pay 20 month. Nobody came. Now, in the winter dark of Wyoming, 1879, Elias Ward was watching his daughter die, and he was beginning to think that when she went, he'd follow her into the ground next to Mary. But then, through the blizzard, came a knock at the door. If you want to know whether this man found salvation in the storm or lost everything trying, stay until the end. And if this story touches something in you, let me know by hitting that subscribe button. Elias Ward wasn't a man given to prayer. He'd been a cavalryman in the Sioux campaigns of '76, seen enough death to know that God played favorites, if he played at all. But watching Grace grow weaker by the hour, he'd tried everything. The cabin sat 8 miles southwest of Sage Hollow, a nothing town of 200 souls clinging to the southern Wyoming grasslands. Out here, winter wasn't just cold. It was a killer. Temperatures dropped to 15 below. Snow came in walls of white that could bury a man in minutes. Mary had died of bleeding after Grace's birth. He'd held her hand while the light left her eyes, her last words a whisper. "Save our baby." He'd tried. Christ, how he'd tried. First, he'd gone to the Grants, borrowed their alpine goats. Grace had screamed at the taste, vomited what little went down. Then he'd tried thinning cow's milk with water. The baby convulsed, her tiny body rejecting it. He'd boiled oatmeal to paste, tried feeding her with a rag soaked in it. She turned her head away, too weak even to cry. The town offered prayers, but no help. Nursing mothers didn't leave their own children, the ones who might have needed $20 more than they needed their reputations. Well, they knew what people would say. A woman letting a stranger's baby suckle? Might as well paint a scarlet letter on her chest. Mr. Hewitt, the preacher, had clasped Elias's shoulder at church. "The Lord will provide, brother. Have faith." Elias had walked out without a word. On the 6th night, he sat by the cradle, Grace's breathing shallow and irregular. She no longer had the strength to cry. Her skin had gone gray. Her lips were cracked. He knew the signs. He'd seen men die of thirst in the desert. This was the same, just slower. He picked up the colt, turned it over in his hands. Not for her. He could never. But for after. When she was gone and buried next to Mary, when this cabin was nothing but a tomb, maybe then he'd have the courage to... No. He set the gun down, stood up, walked to the window. Snow was starting to fall, thick and heavy. Another blizzard coming. He could feel it in the air, that particular kind of silence before the sky opened up. He thought about Mary, the way she used to hum while cooking, the way she'd touch his face in the morning, her hands always cold, the way she'd smiled when Grace was born, even as the blood pooled beneath her. "I'm trying, Mary," he said to the darkness. "I'm trying, but I don't know how to save her." The wind answered with a howl, and then, impossibly, came the knock. Elias grabbed the colt, moved to the door. Through the gap in the wood, he could see a figure, slender, hunched against the wind. No horse, no wagon, just a woman standing in a blizzard at 10 o'clock at night. He opened the door. She was soaked through, her dress clinging to her body, her shawl crusted with ice. Brown blonde hair stuck to her face. Her eyes, pale gray blue, looked up at him with exhaustion and something else. Defiance, maybe, or desperation that matched his own. "I saw your light," she said. Her voice carried a German accent, softened by years in America. "I need shelter. Just tonight. I'll be gone by morning." Elias looked her over. No coat, shoes falling apart, hands swollen and red from cold. She'd been walking for hours, maybe days, and she was alone. Out here, you didn't ask too many questions. You helped or you didn't. He stepped aside. She moved past him into the cabin's warmth, and that's when Grace made a sound, a weak, mewling cry from the cradle. The woman froze. She turned slowly, her eyes finding the baby. Something shifted in her expression. Pain, recognition, longing so fierce it was almost violent. "Your child?" she asked. "Mine. My wife died. The baby won't take milk." His voice was flat, factual. No point dressing it up. The woman walked to the cradle, looked down at Grace. For a long moment she didn't move. Then she touched her own chest just above her heart, and her breath hitched. "How long?" she whispered. 6 days. "No." She shook her head. "How old?" 11 weeks. The woman closed her eyes. When she opened them, tears were sliding down her cheeks. She looked at Elias, and in that moment he understood. "I had a son," she said quietly. "Patrick. He died 5 weeks ago. He was weak. Couldn't breathe right." Her hand pressed harder against her chest. "My body doesn't know he's gone. The milk still comes. Every day. Her voice broke. "I've been binding myself, trying to stop it, but it hurts." Elias felt something crack open inside him. Hope. Terrible, desperate hope. "Could you feed her?" She looked at Grace again. The baby's breathing was so shallow it barely moved her chest. "I don't know if I have enough. It's been weeks since..." "Anything's more than she has now." The woman wiped her face with the back of her hand, nodded. "All right." She sat down in the old oak chair by the fireplace, unbuttoned her dress with trembling fingers. Elias turned away, facing the window. Not out of shame, but respect. This was sacred in its way, a kind of communion he had no part in. He heard Grace whimper. Then the sound changed, became a suckling, wet and rhythmic. The baby was drinking. Behind him, the woman began to cry. Soft, broken sobs that she tried to muffle. Elias closed his eyes, felt his own tears come. For the first time since Mary died, he let them fall. His daughter was going to live. Her name was Clara Henley. She told him that much the next morning, when the blizzard had passed and weak sunlight filtered through the cabin's single window. She'd slept in his bed, he'd insisted, taking the floor by the fire, and now she stood by the door, wrapped in Mary's old coat. "I should go," she said. "Where to?" She didn't answer, just looked at Grace, sleeping peacefully in her cradle for the first time in a week. "Stay," Elias said. $20 a month? Room, board, 3 meals? You care for Grace? That's all? People will talk. People always talk. I mean," she hesitated, "a woman living with a man who's not her husband. Out here. They'll say things. Let them." He crossed to the stove, poured coffee. "My daughter needs you. What people say doesn't matter a damn to me." Clara studied him. He was tall, lean, with the kind of hard-worn face that came from years in the sun and wind. A scar cut across his left temple. His hands were calloused, scarred, but his eyes, brown, deep-set, held a gentleness that belied the roughness. "I'll stay," she said finally, "but only for a little while, until she's stronger." That was 3 weeks ago. Now Clara moved through the cabin like she'd always been there. She fed Grace every few hours, watching the baby grow stronger, pinker, more alive. She cooked, simple food, but better than anything Elias had managed on his own. She mended his shirts, washed clothes in the icy stream behind the cabin, hung them to dry by the fire. Elias gave her the small back room, the one he'd planned as a nursery before Mary died. He built her a better bed frame, brought in a decent mattress from town, left a jar of bear grease on her table one morning, for her hands, which were cracked and bleeding from the cold water. She never said thank you, just used it, and the next day, her hands looked better. They didn't talk much, but they developed a rhythm, a silent understanding. She'd fold his clothes and leave them on his chair. He'd leave warm water for her to wash with in the mornings. She'd hum while feeding Grace. He'd sit by the fire, cleaning his rifle, listening. One night, Grace spiked a fever. Clara held her for hours, rocking, whispering in German. Elias sat beside her, cooling the baby's forehead with a damp cloth. Neither of them slept. By dawn, the fever broke. They looked at each other across Grace's sleeping form, exhausted, relieved. Clara's hair was loose, falling around her shoulders. Her nightgown was thin cotton, the firelight behind her rendering it nearly transparent. Elias could see the curve of her waist, the swell of her hips. He looked away, jaw tight. She was beautiful. That was the hell of it. And she was living in his house, caring for his child, and every day he woke up wanting things he had no right to want. Mary had been dead 2 months. 2 months. What kind of man was he, that he could look at another woman and feel... He stood abruptly. "I'll check the horses." It was still dark outside, but he needed the cold. Word spread, as it always did. By the 3rd week, everyone in Sage Hollow knew that Elias Ward had a woman living with him. A woman who wasn't his wife. A woman who was nursing his baby. When Elias rode into town for supplies, he felt the stares, heard the whispers that cut off when he walked past. At Morrison's general store, Mrs. Morrison served him tight-lipped, counting his change with exaggerated care. "Heard you got help out at your place," she said, not looking at him. "That's right. Must be a relief. For the baby." "It is." She leaned in, voice dropping. "People are talking, Mr. Ward. A woman living under your roof, unmarried, and your poor Mary not even cold in the ground." Elias set down his coins with deliberate care. "Mary's dead. Grace isn't. If folks want to talk about me keeping my daughter alive, they can talk all they want." He walked out with his supplies, but the words followed him. That Saturday, Reverend Hewitt came to the cabin. He was a decent man, as preachers went. Not cruel, just rigid in the way men of God often were. "Ward," he said, removing his hat. "Can we talk?" Elias let him in, offered coffee. Clara was in the back room with Grace. She stayed there, listening. "I'll be direct," Hewitt said. "You've got a woman living here, unmarried. The town council is concerned." "Concerned about what?" "About the propriety of the situation. About what example it sets." He paused. "About whether it's a fit environment for a child." Elias went very still. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that if this continues, the council may petition the territorial judge to review Grace's custody. They have that right, if they believe the child is being raised in immoral circumstances." The word hung in the air like smoke. Elias stood slowly. "Let me make something clear, Reverend. That woman saved my daughter's life. She's cared for her like her own. And if anyone tries to take Grace from me, they'll have to kill me first." Hewitt stood too, his face troubled. "I'm not your enemy, Ward. I'm trying to help you. Marry the woman or send her away. Those are your options. Otherwise..." He trailed off. After he left, Clara emerged from the back room. Her face was pale. "They'll take her from me," she whispered. "They'll take Grace." "No one's taking anyone. You don't understand." Her voice rose, frantic. "In South Pass, when Patrick died, they said I was an unfit mother. My husband, Ben, he told everyone I'd let our son die, that I'd been negligent. He was drinking, he was angry, and he—" She stopped, swallowed hard. "He said I was a whore, that Patrick probably wasn't even his." Elias stepped closer. "Clara, they believed him. The whole town believed him. And when I ran, he told them I'd abandoned my child's grave, that I was—" Tears streamed down her face. "I can't let them take Grace. I can't lose another baby. I can't—" "Clara." He gripped her shoulders, firm but gentle. "Look at me." She did, her eyes wild with fear. "No one is taking Grace. Not from me and not from you. But if they come, then I'll deal with it. But you're not going anywhere. You hear me?" She nodded, but the fear didn't leave her eyes. That night, it snowed again. And sometime before dawn, Clara disappeared. Elias woke to silence. Not the normal quiet of early morning, but the wrong kind of silence. The kind that meant something was missing. He was on his feet before his mind caught up, moving to the back room. Empty. The front room. Empty. Grace's cradle. Empty. "Clara!" He grabbed his coat, didn't bother with boots, ran outside into the snow. It was coming down hard, the wind driving it sideways. He couldn't see more than 20 feet. "Clara!" Nothing. Just the howl of the blizzard. He ran toward the barn, thinking maybe she'd gone to check the horses, but even as he thought it, he knew it was wrong. She'd taken Grace, which meant she wasn't checking on anything. She was running. He found her tracks leading north toward the open grassland, already filling in with snow. He followed them at a run, shouting her name, his voice lost in the wind. 100 yards from the cabin, the tracks ended at the old horse corral, abandoned years ago, just 3 walls and a collapsed roof. And there, in the corner where the walls met, Clara was huddled in the snow, Grace wrapped in blankets against her chest. Clara, Jesus Christ. He dropped to his knees beside her. She was conscious, but barely. Her lips were blue, her eyes unfocused. "I'm sorry," she mumbled. "I'm sorry, I couldn't let them take her. I thought if we were gone, you'd be safe. They'd leave you alone. You could—" "Stop talking." He pulled off his coat, wrapped it around her shoulders, gathered her and Grace into his arms. Grace was crying, but strong. Clara had kept her warm, even as she froze. He carried them both back to the cabin, kicking the door open, bringing them to the fire. Grace he placed in her cradle, still bundled. "Clara," he said in the oak chair, chafing her hands, her feet, trying to get the blood moving again. "You could have died," he said, his voice rough. "Both of you could have died." "Better than them taking her," Clara whispered. "No." He knelt in front of her, took her face in his hands. "Listen to me. You are not a bad mother. You did not kill your son. And you are not going to lose Grace. But they said— I don't care what they said. I don't care what anyone says." He leaned his forehead against hers. "Clara, you saved my daughter. You gave her life. You gave me—" His voice broke. "You gave me a reason to keep breathing." She was crying again, but this time he didn't look away. "I'm going to marry you," he said. "Not because of what people say. Not to protect Grace. I'm going to marry you because I wake up every morning wanting to see your face. Because I watch you with her, and I think, this is what a family looks like. This is what home feels like." "Elias, I know it's fast. I know Mary I know. But this is real. What I feel for you is real. And if you'll have me—" She kissed him. They agreed to marry. Elias would ride into Sage Hollow on Monday, arrange it with Judge Cartwright. A civil ceremony. Simple and legal. No one could question Grace's home then. But Sunday came, and with it, a rider. Elias was splitting wood when he heard the horses. 3 of them, coming up the road. He set down the axe, walked to the cabin door. Clara was inside with Grace. She looked up at his expression, went pale. "Stay inside," he said. The lead rider was a bull of a man, thick through the chest and shoulders, with a rust-colored beard and small, mean eyes. He pulled his horse to a stop 20 feet from the cabin. "You, Elias Ward?" "Who's asking?" "Ben Heinlein. I'm here for my wife." Elias felt his jaw tighten. So this was him. The man who'd beaten Clara, who'd blamed her for their son's death, who'd driven her out into the winter to die. "You're confused," Elias said, his voice level. "Your wife left you. She's not going back." Ben laughed, a harsh bark. "That's so? Well, according to territorial law, we're still married, which means she comes with me. And I hear she's been wet nursing your brat. That's got to be worth something. Maybe you pay me. I let her stay." The 2 men with him, miners by the look of them, probably drinking buddies, shifted in their saddles. Elias didn't move. "How much did she tell you?" "Tell me what? About why she left? About what you did to her?" Ben's face darkened. "What happens between a man and his wife ain't your concern. It is when she shows up half dead on my doorstep. She's dramatic. Always was." Ben dismounted, his hand resting on the pistol at his hip. "Now, I'm taking her back. You can hand her over nice, or we can do this another way." The cabin door opened. Clara stepped out, Grace in her arms. Elias tried to wave her back inside, but she ignored him, walking to stand beside him. "I'm not going anywhere with you, Ben." He looked her over, lip curling. "You think you're better than me now? Shacking up with this cowboy, playing mother to his kid?" "I am her mother." Clara's voice was steady. "In every way that matters. The law says different. Then we'll change what the law says. I'm filing for divorce." Ben laughed again. "With what money? What lawyer's going to take your case? You're nothing, Clara. You were nothing when I married you, and you're nothing now." "Wrong," Elias said. Ben turned to him. "What? She's not nothing. She's the woman who saved my daughter. The woman I'm marrying tomorrow." He took a step forward. "And if you ever come near her again, I will put you in the ground." Ben's hand moved to his gun. His 2 friends reached for theirs. Elias stood still. "You pull that, you better kill me with the first shot. Because if you don't, I guarantee you won't get a second. And your friends here? They'll hang for murder. Territorial law is real clear on that." The 2 miners exchanged glances. Neither looked eager to die over someone else's marital dispute. Ben saw it too. His face went red, then white. "This ain't over." "Yes," Clara said quietly. "It is." She held Grace closer, the baby's head resting against her chest. Ben looked at them, wife and child, and for just a moment, something like regret flickered across his face. Then he spat in the dirt, climbed back on his horse, and rode away. Monday morning, they rode to Sage Hollow. Grace bundled between them. The sky was clear, painfully blue, the air so cold it burned. Judge Cartwright was a gray-haired man of 60, weathered and pragmatic. He'd seen too much of life to be shocked by much of anything. "You sure about this, Ward?" he asked, looking over his spectacles. "I am." "And you, Mrs. Henley?" Clara glanced at Elias, then nodded. "I'm sure. Anyone objects to this union, They can file a complaint with the territorial court. But far as I'm concerned, you're both of age, both sound of mind, and the baby needs a mother. He dipped his pen. Sign here. They signed. No ceremony. No witnesses except the judge and his clerk. Just two signatures on a piece of paper that made them husband and wife. Outside, Elias helped Clara onto the horse. She held Grace while he climbed up behind her, his arms around them both, holding the reins. You regret it yet? He asked. She leaned back against his chest. Ask me in 50 years. On the way home, they stopped at Mary's grave. Elias dismounted, stood before the wooden cross he'd carved with his own hands. Clara stayed on the horse, giving him space. Mary, he said softly, I hope you understand. I hope you know I loved you. Love you still. He paused. But Grace needs a mother. And I need someone to help me remember how to live. The wind moved through the grass, making it hiss and sway. Clara's good, he continued. She's kind. She's strong. She loves our daughter like her own. He touched the cross. I think you'd like her. I hope you'd be glad she's here. A crow landed on the cross, regarded him with one black eye, then took flight. Elias turned, walked back to the horse. Clara's eyes were wet, but she was smiling. What did she say? She asked. He swung up behind her. She said to take care of you. Clara laughed, a sound like bells. Liar. Maybe. He kissed the top of her head. But it's what she would have said. They rode home as the sun began to set, painting the snow gold and pink. Behind them, their tracks stretched out across the white expanse, two paths that had joined, leading forward into whatever came next. That's the story of Sage Hollow, of how love finds you in the strangest places, in blizzards and desperation, in the space between grief and hope. If it moved you, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Hit subscribe for more stories from the wild heart of America. And remember, the West wasn't won by the strongest or the fastest. It was won by the ones who refused to quit when winter came. Thanks for listening. Until next time.